Hello everybody, Andy here again. Well, this is the first in hopefully a series of album reviews which I've mentioned I'm going to start doing here on my YouTube channel. The first album is by the band Keane and it's their third album called Perfect Symmetry. Their first album, Hopes and Fears, sort of burst onto the scene, I think it was about 2005, 2004, that sort of time. Took the world by storm in some ways. They were a slightly different band, slightly different sounding band with just the piano, the keyboards, the drums and the vocals. You know, nothing else really. A sort of stripped down idea there. Sold millions of copies throughout the world. They've toured extensively. Their second album, Under the Iron Sea, came out a couple of years ago. I know that was recorded in not quite so great circumstances. Another very successful album. And now we're on to the third one, Perfect Symmetry. Why have I picked this first? Well, for me, they're actually a local band to the area that I live in Hastings in the UK. They actually come from a town called Battle, which is only sort of 5 or 6 miles north of where I'm sitting now. So I've had an interest in them for quite some time. Although they've never really played locally, to my knowledge, they've only ever played one sort of real local gig, and that was a charity one at that. But I did see them literally just before they released their sort of the first big single, Somewhere Only We Know. And I saw them at a small theatre in Eastbourne, not far away from here. And there was about 100 people in the audience, and most of those were family and friends. And I remember thinking at the time, because I had seen them on the TV, but not really clicked as to who they were. I remember thinking at the time, with that sort of stripped down sort of feel to them, which was very good, and it came across very good on the night as well, was how long could they make this last? Could they sort of put a whole album together? Well, obviously they did that, and now we've moved on, and you're thinking, how many more albums can they make? Now, obviously, the new album, if you've heard it, if you haven't, it's a bit of a departure. They've sort of boosted the band up now. They've now got a guitarist in Tom Chaplin, the singer, who plays guitar as well live. They've also brought in a bass player for live performances as well. So they've expanded. They've got a sort of a guitar and bass, and they've become a bit more of a guitar band and expanded in that respect, which I think is good to see. As I said, they're moving along, they're looking at things in a different way, they're trying different avenues. I know sort of the keyboard player has always been very, very, very keen on sort of trying to put sort of sonic sounds in there and experimenting with sounds as well, because he's the main sort of writer in the band as well. So things have moved on, they've experimented, which, as I said, is a very good thing. For me, it doesn't work quite so well. In some tracks it does. There's a track on the album called Playing Along which uses guitar in there quite a lot, and I think that uses it to its best effect. But for me, Keane aren't a guitar band, and not that they do that throughout the album. There's a variety of tracks on there. You've probably heard the original single, the sort of lead track on the album, Spiraling, which when you first hear that you think, wow, that's a bit different, and it's got a sort of a slightly 80s feel to it, which is another thing that's sort of creeping in, not just with Keane but with other bands as well, I've noticed. But certainly on this album you can hear a sort of an 80s feel, an 80s sort of theme coming back nowadays. On this particular album you can hear sort of traces of people like the Human League, if anybody remembers them, and bands like Ultravox as well. The sort of singles, to give you an idea of what it's like, the first single on the album, as I said, Spiraling, which I think is a very strong single, and the second single over here in the UK is a track called The Lovers Are Losing, and to me that is not a particularly good song. It's a bit indicative of the album. You've got some good songs on there, and then you've got other songs which could almost be sort of Keane by numbers songs, sort of, and it's like a tick in the box exercise. I'm sure that's not the way it was done, but that's how it comes across at times. So some of the tracks on there are strong, some of them are sort of the classic Keane songs, and other ones you think, well, that's quite ordinary really. There's one particular track called Better Than This, and I've got another one written down here, Pretend That You're Alone, which to me just don't cut it. But this is purely a personal opinion. This is, you know, trying to be a personal opinion and trying to be truthful as well. So, but one thing I will say is that the album does grow on you. I sort of downloaded some of the tracks perfectly legally. At the first ones that sort of struck me when you listen to the little clips that are on the website, and they're the ones that stick with me. And some of them have grown as well. I've now downloaded the rest, and now I know why I didn't download them at first. To me, they just don't really cut it. It's good to see, as I said, it's good to see a band trying something new, moving along, trying something different. But it does make me wonder whether they're actually attracting any more new fans, or whether it's just the old fans that are staying with them. I'd be interested to know if anybody knows that, whether there's any sort of new people just getting into Keane, or whether it's the people like me who've supported them from the beginning, who really like the early stuff as well, and who are still sort of hanging on. You do wonder how long that will last, whether the next album will be another slight departure, which is all very good, but whether they will sort of lose more fans albums that way. I don't know. I've noticed that I don't think this particular album is selling quite as much as the other albums. From a personal point of view, I do prefer the sort of stripped down sort of early feel, because I felt that it was a bit different, and it also highlighted Tom Chaplin's voice, which is a very good tool, I think. It comes across on this album in places as well, but not all the time, and I think it gets lost in some of the other songs and maybe some of the other sort of guitar and the sort of the building of the songs up. It's just made them more of a whole song, I suppose, but it loses a little bit of it. But that's me, that's a personal opinion. I prefer the sort of the raw, the stripped down sort of side of things, but as I said, that's just me. So if I were to give it sort of a marks out of 10, I think it would just about get to about a 6, I think. As I said, that's me. A bit of a disappointment in some ways, but it will be interesting to see how they sort of progress in the future, see what happens with the 4th album, if they get to a 4th album. As I said, maybe with the moving along, they'll get there quite easily and quite happily, and I hope that they do, because it's always good to support local people. Anyone else who's got the album, who's interested, so you want to post your own opinion of it, which can be completely different to me, I don't mind. That's what this is all about. This is my opinion. I'm not trying to tell you what to buy or what not to buy, just giving my own personal opinion about a particular album. So if you've got your own opinion, you want to post it as a response to this in the comment or as a video, that'd be great. Anyway, next album, we'll have to wait and see what that might be. Anyway, thanks for your time. I'll speak to you again soon. Goodbye.